Thank you for joining XROM, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Sabarinath Nair, who's the CEO of Skillveri. He's a computer scientist with interest in simulation, integrated training methodologies. He has wide experience in building intuitive and effective products and solutions for the developing world. And he has been selected to be on the Prime Minister's Champions of Change initiative. He's on the panel of Education and Skill Development, and he's also a winner of NSDC's National Innovation for Skills Challenge. So, Sabri, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. I shared your intro, which I kind of pulled it off the net, but I think it always works well, if I get the introduction from my guest itself. So it would be really cool if you could start with a small, brief introduction in the background.
Sure. Thanks, Eddie. So, I'm Sabarinath. I run this company called Skillveri, and Skillveri uses XR and Metaverse and VR to on a very niche segment of vocational skill training. So usually when you hear about XR, it's either about gaming or about education. So even if it is in education, it's rarely about vocational or the industrial applications. So our work is in the industrial metaverse or the applications of XR and AR, VR into the industrial shop floor skills. So that's where we operate.
Lovely. So since you do vocational training, I mean, I would like to ask you this question about generally about the education industry. What do you think about the education industry and currently where they are? Do you think that these education industry or the institutes are preparing the students for the job requirement of today and the future?
Broadly, I would think no. That's why a lot of if you look at education as well as if you look at vocational training. The large Indian edtech companies are all in the space of actually private tuition with technology enablement. They are not replacing schools; they are replacing private tuitions with technology. Same is the case with vocational education because I'm saying this from the background, like we have customers here in India, we have customers in the Western markets as well, like Europe and North America. So in Europe and North America, almost all of our customers are the training centers or the academic institutions, whereas in India, the majority is actually from the industry. The key difference, what I felt is that in the Western world, the industry does not ask for any additional internal training because they are sort of happy with the output they get from the academic side. So if somebody is a certified welder, they know that this person can do the job properly, whereas that's not the case here in India. Almost all the industries we work with, they have at least a year-long training program after they hire from an institute of repute. So that's the gap. I think in education, the gap is that the schools are not delivering what the parents expect the schools to do, and in vocational also, they are not delivering what the employers expect them to have. So that's the big gap in the Indian context.
Thank you for actually being honest and sharing your views. I mean, a lot of people shy away from the truth or the facts. And yes, I guess there is a large gap because if you go to see, I think most of the industries also today are looking at reskilling and upskilling. So definitely there's someone not doing their job right, like creating the students for the future. Otherwise, why would the industries would have to spend millions of dollars in reskilling and upskilling? Now, even entrepreneurs such as Elon Musk are of the view that colleges, institutes, and degrees are overrated. What would your views be on that? And do talk about skills versus degrees. As someone as an entrepreneur, what is that you would go for?
So as an entrepreneur, I personally think, this is my personal view. I'm not an authority to say this. My personal view is that I would rather go for skills and attitude as opposed to degrees on paper. That's my personal choice. There are people who hire only from the top IITs or top IIMs, but I would think that if somebody brings in the skill and has an attitude to learn new things, I would pick that person over someone with a fancy degree. And I think in India, we also see a lot of tendency for people to keep on studies you would see people doing double masters and then a doctoral and then a postdoctoral. So even by the age of 30, they are not really contributing to the society in some sense. Like unless the research they are doing is so cutting edge and it is finding an application by some industry coming and licensing that tech from the university, we end up seeing a lot of people doing doctorate because they need to have that title in front of their names. So I think that's a wrong trend or wrong focus. On the other hand, a lot of things are changing so fast. It's not possible for a 4-year program to be so updated that they can always deliver what the industry will need. So I would have preferred if the degree programs are shorter. Instead of 3 years becoming 4 years, I would have been happier if it shortens to 2 years so that there is more predictability and uh, the year 3 and year 4 could be more of a full-time internship or a practical apprenticeship, which will deliver the skills that the industry requires than what was finalized in some closed room as the syllabus.
Right. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on these shortening the courses idea or thought? Because I think there are a lot of these institutes, edtechs are going for these micro programs, which is really focused and narrow rather than very, broad. And while you are talking about these micro programs, talk about a little bit of these MOOCs also and these massive open online courses and internet in general being regarded as the new teacher, which is actually free, easily accessible any point in time. So how is that you also think going to disrupt the education industry, both vocational as well as
Yeah, I think that disruption is already happening. Like if you need to know something, be it something you got to do in the house to repair something, or you have to learn something. Many people now I find they straight away go to YouTube and put in a search keyword, and then they get 5 videos from which they learn what's it all about, and then they do and apply it right away. So that I think is a change that has already happened. And in terms of micro courses, I think that helps because there are a lot more options. You can pick and choose to do and learn only the precise thing that you think will get applied in your job. So many times when I am consulted by engineering college departments to advise on their curriculum, I try and tell people to, you don't need to cram in so much of compulsory items. You can make it more electives based, which is in sense, in a sense like the micro programs too. And it is physically not possible for somebody to learn so many things at a shallow level. It is rather better to pick one or two verticals and then try and go as deep as possible in those verticals. So that has been my personal preference in terms of the education side. Even the vocational side, if you look at a subject like welding, which is an area that we have been working for the last 10 years. So somebody to become a welder in the automotive sector is actually requiring only 2 to 4 weeks of training. The welding courses that run in the country run by the ITs are 1 year long. Even if the courses by the government are free, or maybe having a very nominal fees, what is not taken into account is the opportunity cost for the people coming and attending the course. Like if I can either come and enroll for a full-time course, or I can go for a casual laborer kind of job. The casual laborer earns 8,000 a month at least. Whereas if I'm studying, even if the course is free, I'm practically paying that 8,000 rupees a month. So if it is instead possible to train somebody to be an automotive welder, which takes about a month long or 2 weeks long course, from the second month, he's going to earn 15,000 rupees a month. And so it's been spoken about a lot, but not so much implemented, that there can be multiple entry points and multiple exit points from your education path. That I think should come in. So you learn just to be a very basic automotive welder. You spend 2 weeks to 4 weeks learning that. You earn for a year. You have some savings. Then you decide, okay, come, let me upgrade my skills to be an advanced automotive welder. So you spend another 2 weeks or 1 month in acquiring additional skills, and then your earning goes from 15,000 to 25,000. So like that, there can be multiple entry points, multiple exit points. Doesn't have to be one commitment for 4 years. just before getting into this recording, I was reading a tweet where the person had analyzed the placement opportunities at IITs, and then there was also another related tweet which said about the skew towards the tech, the software side of things, as opposed to manufacturing and core engineering. Now, the and as of today's date, he was saying that it doesn't matter which IIT. I mean, it's not sufficient that you have gone to an IIT, but it's also important that you study the right course at an IIT. Now, this is one aspect that keeps changing. If it's a boom year, then it doesn't matter which course you have studied. You get a placement just by being in that IIT, because the employers know that you are part of the green. But if it's not a boom year, then they start to be choosy. They look for only certain courses over all the other courses. So when you're entering a course, it is very difficult to predict what's the job market going to be like after 4 years. If it is 2 years, it's slightly more easy to predict. 4 years is totally very difficult to do that.
Right. So awesome. I mean, you summarize in such a way, instead of, today you have these opportunities and the vocational training you're doing through Skillveri. A person can start, becoming, making money right from, rather than waiting out for 4 years. So I think that it's such a different perspective to look towards life and your career itself in this extremely fast changing, fast evolving world where there's various dynamics are at play. Either you wait it out for 4 years, 8 years, thinking that, okay, I'm going to do that. And by that time, the entire dynamics has changed, and whatever you did is completely irrelevant, because today itself, there are so many jobs which are just being erased by artificial intelligence. There's image to text generation, and there was this entire thought that AI would not be touching the creative field, and here comes Stable Diffusion, which has created this open API, open platform, where you just throw in a couple of prompts, and there, voila, you become a designer. In not like professional designer, but at least you have a reference without creating a team or being a huge amount. So I think a student needs to understand this dynamics, because the world is evolving and changing rapidly, and post-COVID, that dynamics has accelerated. So in that world, I think a student, an institute, an enterprise needs to be aware of this dynamics and start leveraging it quickly. You need to be agile like a startup. And you also mentioned about that in this world of so much information, we always there's something called FOMO. You fear of losing out or missing out. But I think you need to funnel in things which is important for you rather than let everything come, because there's no single person in the world who will be able to take the kind of data that which is being churned out every minute or a second. Would you like to talk about Skillveri, what you're building, and talk about a little bit more, please?
Yes. So our focus had been in terms of, let me tell you the context behind which we started Skillveri 10 years back. So the National Skill Development Corporation had been launched a few years before that. And then I read one speech by the then CEO of NSDC, where he said that the Delhi T3 was built using Chinese labor. And the Delhi metro, the tunneling was done by people who were brought in from Peru. So I was so surprised, a country this populous with 70% of it being young, why did we have to bring people from across the world to get things done here? So that's when I started reading more about what was called as the skill gap, and how India as a nation has been obsessed with white collar and therefore paper degrees, as opposed to being able to create something of value to the rest of the society. So, and then we also realized that it is not possible to create 100 times more ITIs or 100 times more engineering colleges or polytechnics. So some of it has to be technology enabled. So you mentioned Mooc earlier in this conversation. So our objective was to be the Mooc for the practical skills. Mooc is already there through Coursera, Udemy, everything, or even YouTube, where you can search a keyword and find the relevant videos. But then you can't possibly learn to swim by looking at a video, or same thing with welding, painting, AC repair, and other things. So that's what we wanted to be. So we started with welding because when we did our initial study, we were looking at a significant skill which can give somebody a good earning ability. We were defining it around 12,000, 15,000 rupees per month at that point of time, 10 years back. And welding was one such skill where it could be taught in 2 weeks and somebody can earn 15,000 rupees by spending 2 weeks of learning. So that's why we started with welding. And then once we solved this for welding, then our customers said, whatever we weld, we also paint. So can you do something for painting? So then we came to automotive painting, and from automotive painting, we came to, because paint is also being used to paint houses. So then household painting training also became another factor. And the moment you use XR into these, there are a lot more possibilities that come out. So one of the spin-off, or rather a good side effect that we had was that the same virtual reality headsets that we use could be used by a domestic painting contractor to go and map out a house to see what is the area, convert that existing house into a 3D drawing. So create a code very quickly saying that this is the total area of wall I have to paint. This is the amount of time I'm going to take. This is the amount of paint I'm going to use. So here is the code. Very quickly, using a software, you can generate a code on the mobile. And you also help them visualize, the customer visualize how the house is going to look after you do the painting. So when you're wearing the headset, initially you have the AR pass through field through which you see the real house. You quickly mark the walls and the edges. Based on that, the software will calculate the area and the paint and the time required. And then the next step, you start applying the texture and paint to each wall. And the wall would, if you're applying a silky coat, it'll look semi-shiny. If you're applying a matte finish, it'll look not shiny. If you're applying gloss, it'll be very shiny. So all that till then was possible on a mobile phone where you keep it and then look at the wall over the camera. But that doesn't give an immersive feeling. So with the current technology, it's possible for you to wear a headset and then visualize it in 3D, walk around the house in 3D. So that opens up a lot more potential. So similarly, the other skills that we came across, one was this AC repair mechanic. So in a country like India, where except the Himalayan states, everywhere there are ACs being used. And the repair of that is a large need. So there are a lot of Indian ITIs also having AC mechanic as a course, but what we find is that even after studying an ITI course, an employer would take them and give them in-house training for about a year. So once we built our software solution using AR, VR, what we found was that our course was helping these employers to reduce the training time from 12 months to about 2 to 3 months. So what earlier, the productivity was only after this first year completion. Now, from the 4th month or 3rd month onwards, a person is capable of being taken on a job by himself or herself. So that has been an achievement that we are proud to speak about.
Right. So this sounds very good, but I'm sure there are these challenges, because challenges as in these hardware are still very expensive. Whether you're talking about these virtual reality glasses or augmented reality glasses, how does this work? Who are your customers at this point in time? Are these blue collar workers able to access and understand the technology? What are the challenges that you've faced while building this?
So let me answer in a slightly different order. So the blue collar workers do not face a problem in terms of technology adoption. I think that has been one of our biggest learnings also in the last so many years. And also, I think that's an area where most policymakers also have been a little blinded, because we assume that Indian rural means that there is no technology, they find it difficult to access all that. People pick up technology really well. It's only a question of access. The moment they get access, they pick up as fast as one of the millennial whiz can pick up. So everybody picks up technology the moment they are given that access to. So that is one. Second is, just to clarify, we don't do trainings ourselves. We are a training enabler. We create software and hardware solutions that training centers use to train their students. So it's more a question of the training the training aspirants finding the right training centers and then enrolling there where they have these high-tech devices. In terms of costing, I think that part is changing, partially because of this push from Facebook or Meta, because they released a headset which they initially priced at $300, and now they have increased the price to $400. And that headset, I think, is a game changer, because before that, most of the headsets were tethered or PC based. So you had to spend about $1,000 on the headset, another $1,000 to $1,500 on the PC, and it was not mobile. You had to make it stationary. Now, when it comes to these standalone untethered headsets, you can carry it around. It has a battery backup. You can have a battery bank, which will provide additional power to these devices. So at $400, I think it is a game changer, because in all of my contacts in the North American market, it's a simple, straightforward business. They go ahead and buy it. Even at the individual level, they go ahead and buy it. The ITI customers that we have in North America, they have one headset for every 2 students. In India, we have one headset for maybe 20 students. So that's a difference that we see in these regions. Even in the Indian context, the Oculus Quest is now around 40,000 rupees landed price in India as of today. Now, it's also the same country where iPhone, which is priced above 1 lakh rupees, also gets sold in big numbers. So the affordability factor is changing. So earlier, when you were speaking about a headset and virtual reality, you needed to spend at least 2.5 lakhs to access that. Now that has come down to 40,000. So I think it is at the same point. We are at the same point where 20 years back, when e-learning was being spoken about, there were laptop penetration was not very high. Now almost every household has at least one laptop. Almost. If you look at the urban cases, and so just like how laptop or a good mobile phone was a entry point into the e-learning modules, the headsets also will become popular enough. Maybe not one in every household, but maybe there could be, just like how we had internet cafes where you could go and access computing and internet, you could have Metaverse cafe or XR cafe or VR cafe is a possible business. You still see it 1 or 2 per city. It could become much larger as the popularity goes up. And there are reports that say that it's only a question of whether VR headsets will become. They're agreeing that VR headsets will become really popular. The only question is, will it become as popular as smartphone, or will it be comparable to smartwatch? There are more people wearing smartwatches today. Will it be at the level of smartwatch, or will it be at the level of smartphone? That's the debating point as of today. So I think things are going to change positively in the near future.
Lovely. Thank you for enlightening me about the change that's happening in the blue collar workers and people who are more adaptive. Because yes, rightfully, I think you pointed out that there's a false notion that the rural areas or the blue collar workers are not so adaptive to tech. But you're saying that there are people who are like really adaptive to tech and moving on and leveraging these kind of things. So, and yes, I think Meta has been such a game changer. There are people who bring down Facebook, but I think the only company today which has really nudged the entire XR conversation or the metaverse conversation forward is only because of a single individual, Mark Zuckerberg, because of his push and his vision of metaverse. And I think possibly Apple is going to ride onto it, and they're just smart players. But I think it's the brave heart, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, which is like really driving the conversation and have created that, like you said, rightly pointed out, Oculus Quest 2. I mean, the price point, $300 now, though it's gone to $400, but a standalone untethered headset, it gives so much kind of freedom and brings the accessibility to a larger population. Would you like to talk a little bit more about the customers? How they're leveraging Skillveri, and maybe because I was on your head side and saw that you have a range of products. If you could talk a little bit about the products also.
Yeah. So in terms of customers, we have in India we have a 50-50 mix between industry and training centers. So industry like Pheasant Group or JCB or Maruti, or on the painting side, Nippon Paint, Asian Paint, Berger Paint, Akzo Nobel. So most large companies which have a captive training need are our customers. So if you look at different segments, if you look at construction equipment, JCB, Kobelco, uh, uh, this Case New Holland, Caterpillar, they are all customers. So if you take automotive, Tata Motors, Ashok Leyland, Maruti, Piaggio, many of them are customers. So we have grown to be the name to go for in terms of industrial skill training. In terms of the institutes, it's the maximum impact of what we do is in the ITIs, where the people who do the hard work are trained. There is also a good presence in polytechnics and also in engineering colleges, including 5 of the IITs of the country. In the foreign market, in the US and Canada market, we are predominantly in the community college and the high schools. So in US, in high schools, they give a preview to what kind of skills you could also pursue if you're not so interested in the regular conventional education. So that preview is done entirely through our products. And coming to the differences in product offering, we have products built around the standalone headsets like Oculus Quest or the Pico Neo headsets, which are portable and mobile, and therefore being a standalone device, their processing ability is limited. And then we also have more digital, more XR offerings built around the HTC Vive Pro kind of devices, where you also have trackers that can be attached to real world objects. So if you're learning welding or painting or blasting, you will have the welding gun or the blasting gun in your hand physically. So you have the haptic feel also. And there are trackers attached to it. So you selectively bring in the components from real world into the virtual world. So you don't need, you may feel like you are inside a welding shop floor and inside a factory, but you have a real welding gun from the real world in your hand, which is mapped exactly 1:1. So that kind of a model is also available. This is meant for more serious and more in-depth, complicated training.
Lovely. How cool is that, Sabri? Sabri, would you like to, share your views on the metaverse and its opportunity? And while you're at it, maybe also talk about India's ecosystem. What are the pros and cons? And do you think the government or the investor ecosystem is doing enough?
Yeah, I think the ecosystem is very good. Like 10 years back when we started, startups were not a cool thing to be. Now startups are the cool thing to be, and it's easier to hire for startups as opposed to 10 years back. And I think government support has been phenomenal in the last 15 years or so. There are a lot of incubators that are out there. So unlike the US, where all these accelerators and incubators are privately run, here in India we have government funded incubators which support new companies to come up with, and then have the financial as well as other technical mentoring support to test out and validate their business models. I think talent is immense, especially in terms of software talent or the talent required to build for virtual reality, augmented reality, etc. is very good. In terms of hardware, I think it is still a little bit lagging. I think one area where Skillveri has stood out compared to the rest is that we are not afraid of hardware. So, like a device like an Oculus Quest is meant for a single person, single use consumption. Whereas if you have to apply it for a training need, somebody else has to see what's happening inside. So there are some built-in streaming methods, but they are all very patchy. Even this morning when we were showing a demo to somebody, they were surprised because when they use their streaming, they say that the built-in streaming from Quest is very patchy. It breaks if you move all that. Whereas we have created our own sort of an operating system which includes a streaming module. So you have a laptop which creates its own Wi-Fi network. The Oculus Quest connects to that, and it streams the content to it. So you connect once with a USB cable, there is a handshake, and then you are good to go. You remove the headset and you're free to walk anywhere. The laptop can connect to a larger screen. So in terms of being unafraid of touching hardware, unafraid of putting together different hardware and then adding your software layer to give a smooth one-click experience to the end user. Because the trainer at an IT is not going to be a software geek. It has to be simple one-click option. So that's something we have been able to do. And on the first question on metaverse, I think it's a double-edged sword. There's a lot of hype on it. A lot of promises are being made. I think only 30% of those promises will be met, and therefore people might be put off from metaverse because you're promising the moon and you're getting only the street lights. So, but street lights by itself are quite useful. So if you look at those use cases where value can be proven, I think it can do wonders that other technologies could not do yet. So we see that learning by doing is 75%, as opposed to listening to somebody say this is how things are. That's only 5%. So that's a huge gap between these two. And metaverse as is being evolving now, or rather virtual reality plus a few other things, or AR, VR, XR plus a few other things will change the way learning is done. So I think the future is bright. I hope the right kind of use cases get more prominence, as opposed to somebody saying I bought real estate in the metaverse. You're not going to wear a headset full time and see. You might actually want to buy a real house, order the real food. You can't see a 3D drawing of a burger and then satisfy your hunger. So the hype needs to be taken off in some areas.
Completely fair enough. Sabri, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. My last question: what would be your pitch to the listeners who would want to access your services? Where can they get in touch with you, and what comes next?
So if they have any of the Oculus or HTC, if they have any of the VR, AR headsets, then they can download our software from the store and then they can try it, or they can get in touch with us over email or phone. Both are listed on our website. And anyone who is interested in contributing contributing to building this future, as in any AR, VR enthusiast who would like to work for us, or any person from the industry or academia wanting to apply AR, VR onto their courses, they are all happy to write to me at ceo@skillveri.com.
Sabri, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. It was a complete learning experience for me. The education industry, vocational as well, is completely changing, and we need people brave enough to point out the wrongs and say that the future is coming. It's dynamic, and there's so much else that you can do rather than hold on to your traditional ways. Kudos to your team. We wish you and your team the very best. And to my listeners, if you like what you see and hear, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate this.
Thank you, Eddie. Enjoyed talking to you.